everyone. My name is Nisa, and I will be your trainer for today. Wanted to thank Julia for inviting me to do this training, and also I want to thank y'all for joining me at the delightful hour of 7 p.m. on, I believe it's Tuesday. And I'm sure y'all have packed schedules and dinners and things that you want to get to, so I'm going to try to make this as impactful as possible and also be respectful of your time. Um, Once I figure out how to work this thing, there we go. Okay, so again, my name is Nisa, and I am a state and local associate for Act Blue. I work with Southern campaigns and organizations. And like Julia said, North Carolina was just added to my portfolio, but I also work with campaigns and organizations in Mississippi, Louisiana, Tennessee, and I had like 7 more states a while back, but I am very grateful for the opportunity to be able to focus on a smaller number of states because I believe it gives me time to give y'all specialized attention and care. I've been at Act Blue now for over 3 years, and when I got to Act Blue, I literally knew nothing about digital fundraising. It sounds like y'all have a pretty good idea of what all it entails, but if you were like me when I first started, no worries. I will walk you through the ins and outs. Yeah. So I wanted to do a land acknowledgement before we begin. I am currently speaking to you all from Albany, New York, which is Mohican and Haudenosaunee land. As we continue to organize our communities, I think it's important to understand the history of our land. And if you haven't already and are interested in doing so, I recommend checking out native-land.ca. I think it's on, yes, it's on the slide, to figure out which treaties and tribes are associated with your community. I think it's a great resource. So let me get into what we'll be talking about today. I will be sharing a little bit about Act Blue and small dollar donors and why we love them, why we aim to support them in their efforts to engage with campaigns and organizations and county parties that they care about. Then we're going to get into digital fundraising. What is it? Why do people do it? Why are they sending those types of emails? And then I'll talk about how to jumpstart your digital fundraising program if you haven't already. Then we'll move on to building your online list and what that looks like in this digital age. Then we'll move on to fundraising emails. And again, why are they sending emails like that and how can I avoid those mistakes? And then we'll talk about making the ask and what actually constitutes a good ask. Then we'll move on to Act Blue's tools and services and how I can be a resource to y'all. Then we'll do a wrap up, share some resources, and give you an opportunity to ask questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or write them down and I'll get to them at the end. Okay, so what is Act Blue? I say this all the time, so I'm sorry, Julia, but if you're just joining us today and you don't know what Act Blue is, that's totally fine. Hopefully you do know since you're joining us, but if not, that's totally fine. When I applied, I knew literally nothing about Act Blue except I wanted to work there. But Act Blue is a nonprofit organization that empowers small dollar donors by making it easy for them to give to the democratic and progressive campaigns and causes that they care about. Really long statement, and often when I say this, a lot of folks have questions about what actually Act Blue is, at which point I say that we are a digital fundraising platform. And using us, campaigns and organizations are able to mobilize grassroots support from their communities because we make it easy for supporters to give to the causes that they care about. So, can I have a volunteer read this slide for me?
Small dollar donors build people-powered movements.
Awesome, thank you. So this is a little bit of a tongue twister in my opinion, which is why I have someone else read it. But essentially what I'm saying here is that small dollar donors are an essential part of the work we're trying to do because they form your grassroots support network. They are the same people who are invested in your work as a county party. They give their time, money, and resources, and they also vote, volunteer, and hopefully eventually run. So this is how we build a winning strategy by intentionally engaging the people in our communities with the work that we are trying to do to elect Democrats. So, small dollars, big numbers. This is a little inside joke. Yeah, Julia.
Before you go to the next slide that has all the pink numbers on it, I want you to, instead of telling them, I want you to ask them those 2 facts and see if they get close.
Great idea. So we're going to talk about the work that we were able to accomplish together last cycle. Before we do that, can I get some guesses about how many people, sorry, what percentage of our donors were first-time givers? You can put it in the chat or just unmute yourself.
Yeah, what percentage of people last cycle do you think were first time donors? This is like, yeah, 56%. All right. Anybody else? 65?
I'll say like 86%.
All right, Wes went for the 86. Linda was just like, price is right. I'm going to go one more. Okay. All right. So mostly 50, 55, 66. And then we got Wes's crazy 80%. And then what was the other statistic, Nisa?
The other statistic is what percentage of contributions were made through mobile devices?
Yeah. How many people think that they, give mobile or something? What percentage of giving? 56 again. All right.
I bet like 90.
All right. Deborah's up at 90. Gary, you got a guess? 75. Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks, Nisa. Let's see.
Okay, so there were some very close guesses. So the percentage of donors who are first-time donors is 72%. So someone guessed, I want to say the closest was 66%, 70% maybe. I don't know, those numbers got mixed up for me.
2,000 bonus points for whoever was the closest.
Yes.
72% of donors were first time givers.
Yes.
Wow.
So there are a lot of numbers on the screen, but I'm only going to focus on those two numbers that we guessed because to me, they are a really good metric for how we're reaching people. So the 72% I think is an exciting number because it shows that we are engaging more people than ever before, and they are people from different walks of life. So we're not just essentially asking the same people to give over and over again. And the great thing about this number is that we don't really see a cap to this momentum, which means that if you haven't started fundraising already using ActBlue, you can now and you can tap into this momentum and this energy that we're seeing in your own communities. Then the second number, I feel like a lot of folks have questions about why I even highlight this number, but I work specifically with rural county parties. And a lot of times, one of the biggest pieces of pushback I get when I talk about digital fundraising is, oh, well, people in our communities don't have access to broadband or internet. So, I like to share this number because it shows that even with that very real barrier to entry and engagement, people are still finding ways to give through mobile devices, even in rural areas. And 58% is actually up from the midterms when I think the number was 54%. So it is a gradual increase. And I think it's a great way to figure out how we can meet people where they are instead of using tools that don't do that. Okay. So those were some of our victories in the last cycle, and we're really humbled to be a part of that work. And I think ActBlue's stance is to never claim credit for any of the work that the campaigns and organizations we work with are doing, but rather to uplift these victories because they're a huge part of the story of building out our grassroots support network and engaging small dollar donors. So that said, I wanted to move on to digital fundraising and what it
Jennifer,
is.
sorry, Nisa. Jennifer, did
Yeah.
you have a question?
It can wait. I think you may go over it, so I just jotted it down.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk digital fundraising. Digital fundraising happens online, and it's any fundraising that happens online, whether that's through social media, email, or text messages. And what I like about digital fundraising is that it is essentially a digital door knock. So at the start of the pandemic, one of the pieces of feedback that we got from folks we were trying to train is they were losing a lot of money and losing a lot of engagement because in-person events were no longer possible. So what we found was, despite that, digital fundraising was a really good way for folks to engage virtually with the people in their community, whether they were candidates running for their seats or county parties hoping to get people to connect in new ways throughout the pandemic. Digital fundraising is a powerful tool because it helps you to build and run a flexible, inexpensive, and empowering program that brings in money and votes. So something that I like to tell county party chairs and county party staff when I'm talking to them is that most parties were already doing some form of digital organizing when the pandemic began, whether that was posting on Facebook from the party account or from your own personal account to update folks on what was going on in your community, or if you were tweeting about a party event or sending emails to thank supporters for joining your team. These are different ways that digital organizing was already happening. So the goal tonight isn't to reinvent the wheel, it's to help you leverage the tools that you've already been using to maximize the impact that you have and expand the reach that you have in your own communities. Okay, so what do you need to get started? A lot of times I work with first-time candidates or folks who've been handed ActBlue accounts from previous county party chairs, and the ActBlue account hasn't really been touched. So when I get on the phone with them and do my welcome call, a lot of times they'll ask what they actually need to get started fundraising. With ActBlue, it's very easy. You copy and paste a link wherever links are shared. But if you're looking to build a strong digital fundraising program, you're going to need a few tools. So this list looks really daunting, but a lot of these things already exist in your arsenal. The first thing is a customer relationship manager, or CRM. So the way that I frame CRMs is they are essentially spreadsheets. That capture the information about who your supporters are, right? So you're going to want to have their name, their contact information, and then also their levels of support, and even ideally the last time you contacted them. So let's say you have a neighbor who is a hardcore Republican, but you have their contact information. You still want them to be on your CRM or your spreadsheet, so that you can mark that, hey, this guy is a Republican. I've already reached out to him, and he's not going to support the county party, obviously, right? Or let's say you have a cousin who you've reached out to and who's really supportive of your work. You're going to want to have their contact information on the spreadsheet so that at a glance you can tell, okay, I have 40 people in my network who support me, and I can ask them to donate $3 this month and see how that goes. That's a really good thing about a CRM. My recommendation is, if you're just starting out, keep it as simple as possible and don't worry about starting with a really big tool if that's not what you actually need. Then you're going to want a fundraising platform. I'm obviously very biased here. I say go with ActBlue. But obviously, if you have reservations still at the end of this training, definitely do your research. But the ideal fundraising platform will obviously allow you to accept contributions online, but it will also give you a way to easily access donor data, including who is donating and what their contact information is, so that you can follow up and send them a thank you email, or even make a volunteer ask. You're also going to want a platform that is easy to use, not just for you, but for the supporters in your community. So that's definitely something to think through as well. Then you're going to want to have a dedicated party email address. One of the biggest things that I experienced when we were all at the beginning of the pandemic was a lot of people getting their emails lost, because obviously the volumes of email increased because that was the only way for folks to really contact each other directly, except for text. So you want to make sure that you stay on top of all official communications so that nothing gets lost. So the best way to do that is to have a separate and dedicated email address. You're also going to want a mass mailer. So this could be something like MailChimp. When I started organizing in college, the way that I would send emails was one by one to a list of like 200 people. You no longer have to do that. It is no longer as fraught and horrible. There are now tools that are relatively inexpensive that you can use in order to send mass emails to your list. You can even create smaller lists. For example, folks who've never given before, you can make a list of those folks and send emails to them all at once instead of one at a time. Um, and I think Julia is planning or has done a MailChimp training. So maybe you can speak to that after I finish up here. But then you're going to want a website. We're going to explain why in a little bit, but just trust me on this one for now. And then you're going to want to have a social media platform. Again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel here, and we'll get into what constitutes the best use of a social media platform, but definitely something to keep in mind.
She took a breath so I could talk, and I just put a Reese's miniature cup in my mouth. So, yeah, I just wanted to point out that I prefer ActBlue. because of the great customer service and because of the ease of customization of the different type of fills that you can have. But we did an audit of all the county party websites for those that had them, and most people, just to answer your question, Gary, most county chairs are either using NGP Van or Act Blue. And so NGP Van is both a merchant account, so they'll help you accept money just like Act Blue will, but they're also a customer relationship manager, but they are way more expensive than Act Blue is in terms of managing your list. And when you can use MailChimp for free, most counties don't have a list that's going to exceed the MailChimp size. Then all you really need is MailChimp as your CRM. And it also is sort of your mass mailer. And then you can use Act Blue. So it's just a whole lot cheaper. As well as I've had a much better customer service experience. So I can't tell you which one to use, but I can certainly share my experiences about that.
And Julia, both of those services are made available to the party chairs for free?
MailChimp is.
Okay.
Act Blue, you are, every time that somebody donates, Act Blue gets a certain percentage of that donation.
That's fine.
And the same thing happens with NGP Van. They get a
Okay.
certain percentage of the donation. The difference is for Act Blue, you are simply, it's a merchant account, so there's a certain percentage of the donation. For NGP Van, you are paying for services like sending out those emails or setting up online pages, or you're paying them to be a CRM for you, to be your database for you. And so instead of doing that, what you can use is MailChimp for free to do the CRM and mailing out.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, absolutely.
Can you share with us what the percentage is of the?
Yeah, I want to actually say, Nisa, I don't know if you can answer this question. I want to say it's 10, what is it? Yeah, I'm going to not answer that.
My eyebrows definitely disappeared when you said 10, but it's definitely 3.95%.
3.9, there you go.
Yes. And it's a credit card transaction fee. And as Julia mentioned, it's like a merchant account maintenance fee. So we are a nonprofit. We don't get any of that information. My bills are paid. My lights are kept on by folks' donations to Act Blue itself, which is great because that makes me work that much harder to make sure that we're providing awesome tools to folks. And it also keeps us working and operating with, I think, integrity. So yeah.
So I will say NGP Van takes less per donation than Act Blue on average, but they also have some weird small print language, and it depends on the credit cards that people are using and all sorts of craziness. And they're reporting sometimes. Yeah, anyway, there's a reason Act Blue is here tonight. That's what I'm going to say. And I'm going to let her move on to the next slide.
Awesome. Thank you, Julia. There are lots of things I can't say, but thank you, Julia, for saying them. Okay, so let's talk about building your list online. I think this is something that when I mention building your list, it sounds jargony, but realistically, you already have a list. In in-person training scenarios, I like to ask folks how many contacts they have in their phone. And a lot of folks will say, oh, I have like over 100, I have over 200, which is good because that is the list that you are going to start with when you start fundraising, right? You're looking to expand past the number of members you already have as a part of your party, to kind of build that list so that your work can be more impactful and so that you can have more support and resources in some of the objectives that you have for this cycle. So your list actually refers to the people you contact to make sure an event goes well, whether that's your donors, your supporters, your members of the party, your neighbors, friends. Ooh, got a little too excited. Family, all the people in your network who support the work you're doing in the party. Again, it can be as simple as the contacts list in your phone or more expansive to include people on your email list if you already have one. And if you don't, we're going to talk about how to build that. So this next section, we'll talk about websites, social media, and virtual events. I'll be sharing best practices and also the different ways that these three tools help you expand your list. So when it comes to websites, the example that I gave earlier today is, let's say you have a Republican in your district who says something controversial, but your county party's your county party doesn't have a website. It has like a Facebook page that is locked. So folks don't know intuitively how to engage with you or support your work, even though they want to donate, they want to sign up, they want to be updated about potential candidates, so on and so forth. This is not like a scenario that I invented. I do this all the time. I'm very online, and so I know when stupid things are being said. There was an example in Texas. Where a candidate was saying something about the winter storm. No, he was an incumbent. He was actually already in office, and he was saying something about the winter storm. And I was like, okay, let me look up the county party so I can donate to them to get this person out of office. And the next day he resigned. That's not the important part. The important part is I could not find the county party online, right? So that was a missed fundraising opportunity for them. So the website is really good because it serves as a digital door hanger. It's where people who aren't currently engaged in your work can go to find out about what you're working on, to sign up, to donate, and to figure out exactly what your values are as a party. Um, Best practices here, you definitely want to make sure that your website is easy to read and easy to look at. This sounds obvious, but there have been many a website that I've been on that has like a light purple background and then super light yellow font, and I'm just like I'm literally straining my eyes and I can't see, or a black background and then dark red links, and I'm just like, okay, I don't know what I'm clicking on and I want to get involved, right? So very real examples. Definitely something to think about. So you want to make sure that your designs are high contrast and easy to see. You also want to make sure that all of your buttons for engagement, like the sign up button and the donate button, are at the top half of your form or your website so people can easily click on it if that's all they're trying to do. And then if they want to read more, they can just scroll down, right? So this is a really good example on the screen here. They have the sign up and contribute buttons right at the top. And then you also want to make sure that you reserve your domain names. I know Julia told a story earlier. I don't know if you want to share that. I
Sure.
would appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I'll share real quick. So in 2014, I managed a state Senate race for Jane Hips. We had all this great literature, janehipsforsenate.org or .com or whatever it was. And I didn't know she was going to run again. So we let the domain go. And in 2016, she ran again. And her opponent bought the domain and put up some fun, nasty stuff about the real Jane Hips. And then we had to like buy something that was fairly similar and then have all of the droplet cards and everything else like reprinted, which was a shame because we had a lot of extra that would have been great to use again. So anyway, make sure you always keep your domain name, set it on auto renew, and at least keep it for another year or two. I mean, I think for you guys, you're county party, so it won't be that crazy, but just realize that some people make their living buying and selling domain names, and sometimes your opponent might own them. So there you go. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. It seems like a very minor thing to keep on top of, but I'm telling you, there have been so many times that I consider myself to be an excellent researcher, by the way, and oftentimes I'll come across a county party's Facebook page and they'll have a link on the Facebook, I click on it, and it's broken, right? So you always just want to make sure that you stay on top of that because I'm not the only person who's trying to find you. Your supporters are also trying to find you. And if it's hard for me, someone who spends literally all day online, imagine how hard it is for someone who's looking to get engaged and only has like 5 minutes to find you, right? Um, okay. So to recap, websites are really good because they help to expand your list beyond your members to include people who are already interested in your work and are looking to find you so that they can engage with that work in different ways. So now let's talk about social media. Social media to me is the most controversial thing we'll talk about today. A lot of times I deal with first-time candidates or new party leadership who are looking for a way to raise a lot of money very quickly. And so they invest in social media really heavily early on because it's a cheap tool, easy to use, and you assume that you're talking to a lot of people. The problem is social media is very loud and there's no magic go viral button. So when you're dealing with social media, even if you by some magic, whirlwind, happenstance, chance, happen to go viral, just because you have 70,000 retweets on something you posted does not mean those people are also clicking on the link and then donating, right? So we've had a lot of candidates who've hit maybe like 10, 20, 50,000 retweets, and then you click on their data and they got maybe $400 raised, which is not great. Whereas with an email, you can make a direct ask to someone's inbox and know that you're reaching them. And you can also track that engagement and figure out if they're giving to you through that form. There are lots of ways to do that. That could probably be a whole 201 topic. So I say still use social media. It's a really great way for you to build community online and to convert people from being followers to being supporters who are actively engaged. You always want to make sure that you're collecting folks' email addresses, and inviting them to participate in different ways, whether that's by attending an event, signing a petition, so on and so forth. And I think Julia mentioned this earlier today, but the key here isn't to have someone sign up to your email list and then immediately ask them for $200. You definitely want to take it slow, ask them to sign up to your email list, invite them to an event, ask them to give $3, and then hit them with the $40 one-time ask. So lots of ways to do that. That's called the ladder of engagement. Again, we can talk about this later on. You can ask me questions about it. But yeah, so don't shy away from social media, but don't also put all of your eggs in that basket. Okay, so let's talk about online events best practices. The newsflash here is these best practices also apply to in-person events. So once it's safe for us to do those again, definitely feel free to use these tips and best practices. So with events, you want to make sure that you're collecting participants' email addresses. It sounds like I'm beating a dead horse because I am. Email addresses are really important. We'll get to why in a little bit. But with events specifically, they're really great because you can follow up and thank supporters for coming to the event and then ask them to contribute to your party or to volunteer or to engage in a different way. And even if someone doesn't attend your event, if you have their email address, you can send them an email and say, hey, we noticed you didn't show up. We've definitely missed you. Please come to this other event, or please give to this initiative that we have on, so on and so forth. Yeah, definitely a best practice here. And in person, what you're going to want to do is have a clipboard or some cards that folks can sign where they can legibly write their email addresses. I can't tell you how many times I've had to decipher scribbles. But online is a lot easier because hopefully people are hitting the right keys when they're typing in their email addresses. Yeah, Julia, anything to add here?
I just wanted to say, I just wanted to follow up. So this whole section right here is about where is your sign up button so that people can join your event. So if we are in real land, not COVID time, and I show up at the Catawba County Democratic Party, is somebody going to have a sheet in front of me that says click here to sign up? I went to a rally at the courthouse for like down home North Carolina. They're fighting against a jail, and they had a person whose job it was to go speak to everybody and stick a clipboard in my face to say sign up, sign up, sign up. And so I signed up, and now I've gotten way too many emails from them wanting donations, and I just signed up last week and they're already begging me for money. So a few soft touches would be fine, but the point is, if I go to your Facebook page, where's your sign up button? If I go to your website, where's your sign up button? If you're sending out tweets and you never say to people like sign up for our mailing list, you're missing a great opportunity to build your list of people who want to be engaged and want to know about the work you're doing. And so that's the point about this. And then I'll just say, please always thank people for their contributions, because usually when I do visits or do trainings, I try to give a little bit of green dollar love back to the counties that I go to. And I can count on one hand the number of counties that have actually like acknowledged that receipt with a gift, with a thank you note. And it doesn't have to be handwritten, but I mean, like a thank you just via email never comes either. And so I think a lot of us have some sort of online system set up, but maybe we don't have our follow-up emails figured out correctly, or maybe we're not telling our county chair that they need to follow up with people. So make sure you're acknowledging it. And let's see, did we get anything in the chat? No, I think we're good if you want to keep going.
Awesome. Thank you, Julia. Another thing to add about the thank yous, with Act Blue, you automatically are able to send thank you emails to folks who give. I would still recommend a personal touch, though, because that's a way for you to make another ask of your supporters. So this is a great time to ask them to phone bank for you, for example. Okay, so let's talk about emails and their role in digital fundraising. email is still number one, and that is because the majority of contributions we see through Act Blue come through emails. And this is typically very surprising for folks because, again, a lot of people, as we move into a more digital age, are putting their eggs into the social media basket. But it is very hard to gauge what real engagement looks like on social media unless you are a very advanced user and you're using pixels and tracking and ref codes and so on and so forth. With email, there's very little guesswork, and depending on the mass mailer you're using, you get all of that information almost immediately. I run my own email program at times when I'm not lazy, and I am able to get that feedback almost immediately about what my open rates are, which tells me how effective my emails are. They're also great because, again, they allow you to make a direct ask to the people in your community instead of playing the guessing game about who is actually seeing your tweet and just scrolling past it. They're also relatively inexpensive and they're super flexible. So you can send emails from home right after an event happens. Yeah, so definitely recommend them. So a good email has the following structure. You're going to want an engaging subject line. In the icebreaker exercise, we talked about subject lines that don't work well, like the 40 chaotic ones you get between 11:59 and 6:59. Keep that in mind. I think saving them is a really good idea because then you have a folder of what not to do and a folder of what works really well. And you can guess as you're starting out that people in your community feel the same way that you do. And then once you get that data back, you can kind of fine tune your strategy. Just make sure your subject line is engaging and not alarmist. There have been many times when I've received horrible, I would assume they're horrible emails. I wouldn't know because I've never opened them, but really bad subject lines. And then I just go ahead and mark them as spam because that's what they are to me. You're also going to want to have a hook that engages people. On average, people spend about 6 seconds deciding if they want to finish reading an email. I take 2 seconds, so just make sure that the first few sentences are super engaging. You're also going to want an explainer that tells folks why you're emailing them at that particular moment. So basically, an explainer is going to show that you actually have a reason to contact folks. You're not just saying, Happy Tuesday. And that's the email, right? You want to have a real reason to contact people. That also cuts down on the inbox fatigue that folks were talking about, receiving 17 emails in one day from one campaign asking for $3. It really does wear on people. And I think that that's a practice that a lot of folks are noticing and hating. So definitely pay attention to that. And then you're going to want to have a really good, strong ask, and we're going to get into how to craft one as well. There is an exercise coming up. Okay, so here's an example. The subject line here is $3 is all it takes. I think that's interesting. I had the Texas Observer sent me an email that was like $2.07 and then a Target emoji. And I was like, do I owe them money? And it works because I clicked on it and I opened it and the copy was very compelling. Did I give? No, but I did open the email and that's about half the battle. So make sure that you have a really good subject line. The hook here, I think it's interesting. It says the future is uncertain with COVID-19, but what we do know is that we need new local leadership to defeat the virus and fully recover from the outbreak. So at this point, I'm like, okay, keep talking. I'm interested now. And then you have the explainer, which is where the candidate or the party is going to tell me why they're emailing me today at 12:59 p.m. and why this might be important to me today. The explainer says people have been feeling the impact of COVID-19 on their health, economic security, and day-to-day lives. I promise to fight for you and do everything in my power to make it possible for you and your family to stay safe and recover from this crisis. But I cannot win this election alone. So this feels compelling to me. This is like, okay, this is a truthful email. It's not alarmist. It's a factual like recount of everything that's been going on over the past year. And now I know why this person is emailing me. It's because they're running and they need money, right? So that is a good email structure. And then there's an ask, but we're going to get to the ask later on. Okay, we're going to get to the ask right now. Okay, so I come from an organizing background. So when it comes to ask, I always make a hard ask. I don't believe in yes or no questions. Usually when I'm scheduling something, I'm like, what time works best for you? 3 p.m. or 5 p.m. on Tuesday? So that's just me. But when you are reaching out to people who don't have that relationship with you, that might be a little bit off-putting. So we're going to talk about the ways to make a virtual ask that is still effective, but not as off-putting as the way that I usually do it. So in this section, we're going to talk about one-time asks versus recurring asks, which are basically monthly donation asks. And then that word is really hard for me to say. Then we're going to talk about building a horizontal relationship versus a vertical relationship. And then we're going to talk about using the theory of change. These are the three components to making a good ask. There's not a test coming up, but there is an exercise. Just saying. Okay, so in what scenario would you be using a one-time ask? One-time ask is really good if you are looking to engage new supporters, say something huge happened in your community and you're noticing a lot of signups on your website. At that point, you can reach out to new supporters and ask them to give $25 to help you jumpstart a program, potentially a voter registration program. You need the water to buy, or you need the money to buy packets of water, to buy snacks, to make sure volunteers are well taken care of. You can communicate all of that in a one-time ask. And the good thing about that too is one-time asks are really great if you have a deadline coming up. So typically when I'm working with candidates, for example, I'll mention that there are organic deadlines built into the calendar year, whether that's end of month or end of quarter. And it might not work well for county parties, but definitely worth trying. You can let folks know that you have an internal deadline of raising $2,000 by the end of the month, and you're currently at $800. I guarantee you will see a boost. I do this all the time with my friends. They're really tired of me. I create arbitrary deadlines, and I'm like, okay, look, I want to get to $750 by the end of this week. Do not humiliate me. Please give. And they do give, which is really wild. It's like, y'all should know by now. But very effective. Then you have monthly asks, which are great for building sustainable support and growth. So, for example, if you know that you have 10 supporters who are giving $10 a month, then you also know that $10 a month each month, and you know that each month you have $100 in your budget to spend on like pens or cell phones, so on and so forth. So it's really great as a budgeting tool, but it's also great for engaging people who might be facing financial hardships. So someone might not be able to give you $25 right now because their budget is looking really tight this month, but they may be able to give you $5 over the next 5 months. You still get the same amount of money, and you're also getting that engagement from someone, and it's long-term sustainable engagement. Okay. Let's talk about horizontal versus vertical relationships. So vertical relationships are those where one member has greater standing in terms of power and authority or knowledge and wisdom. Um, so this type of ask actually creates distance between the sender of the email and the email's recipient. So in this example, it says, I have the answer, chip in. So I've worked with state parties that use that type of ask. And what it does is like, okay, so this state party has all of the answers. They're not looking for my input. They're not looking for my engagement. All they're looking for is this $3. And who's to say if they actually need me to be engaged with this work long term, right? It doesn't really build a vision that says that the initiatives that they're working on or the programs that they're working on are dependent on your success. That is compared to horizontal relationship building, which are relationships where both the organization or the party and the supporter have an equal stake in the problem and the solution. So an example of this is we can win this, but only if we do it together. Together is a great cheat code word to use in your ask. Essentially, what it does is it shows people that you cannot accomplish something alone. You cannot accomplish something alone, right? And it sounds like there's not much of a difference, but again, your goal as a county party isn't to create distance between you and your supporters. It's to show people that everything that you're working on starts at the grassroots, right? So that's definitely something to think about. And this is also not something that I'm just pulling out of thin air, by the way. It's something that's been tested by candidates at the federal and local level, and it's been tested by state parties as well. So definitely natural for county parties to take advantage of this information and to test it themselves. But if you have questions about how to test that, you can just reach out to me or just take my word for it. Okay, so let's talk about the theory of change. The theory of change is the reason why taking an action can make a difference in something your supporters care about. So, like I mentioned, I come from an organizing background, and when I was on the 2016 campaign, I was placed in Las Vegas. I'm not from Las Vegas. I'm from California, specifically Sacramento. So when they placed me in this strange community that I'd never been in and never visited and never organized in, I did not know how to connect with community members. So I took them out for coffee, had maybe 17 cups of coffee a day, but I talked to folks and got to understand why exactly they wanted to get involved with the campaign. A lot of times people come in the door and they're like, oh, like I just want to maybe make one call for the campaign. I don't want to commit to, like doing a canvas launch or anything like that. So I talk to them and I get to know why they're getting involved. And then I hit them with a hard ask. And the hard ask includes telling them why their contribution to the campaign matters. So a canvas launch will help us reach 500 people in your district. Harry Reid lost by 492 votes in one election. So we really want to make sure we reach as many people as possible. And by launching a Canvas launch in your house, you can actually help us get to that goal number. Something attainable, something real and tangible. This also ties in to Julia's earlier question about the morals and ethics of telling folks that you need $25 from them in order to flip a district. That may be true, but it's not specific enough to build that trust. So that is why I always recommend that you are very specific in your theory of change. You're not just trying to flip a district, you're trying to reach 10 more voters, you're trying to reach 40 more voters. You're trying to send a bus of canvassers to a very rural region in your state, right? And $25 is going to help us get there. By outlining that and creating that buy-in, your supporters can make a more well-informed decision about whether or not they can give. Also keeping in mind that people are facing financial hardship and you want to be mindful about that. So be honest about why exactly you need their support and what that money is going towards. So this part of the presentation is just a bunch of bolding, but so the theory of change formula. So do X correlates with make a $20 donation so that Y, so we can buy food supplies to achieve Z. I don't do algebra, but Z correlates to provide free lunches in after school programs for low income families. So again, you need an X, a Y, and a Z, right? You need an action that ties into what it's contributing towards, and then you show a vision of change for your community. Don't worry, there's a less confusing example coming up. Okay, so the theory of change and recurring ask in this example says, today I am asking you to make a $3 monthly contribution to my campaign so that I can build a digital platform to reach voters in my district. So this is really great because it has a specific dollar amount and it shows folks exactly why those $3 matter. Right. And then it's also very specific in asking for a monthly contribution instead of a one-time contribution. Then you have the horizontal relationship. Again, you might notice the cheat code word here, but achieving lasting change and sustained progress is going to require all of us to come together and demand new local leadership. So this is really great because, again, the aim of any campaign or organization or party is not to create distance between themselves and their supporters, but to show folks that you have an equal stake in the work that you're trying to do. This is how you build community. It sounds really strange, but as an organizer, you just have to build community in order to accomplish your goals, right? Okay, that leads us to our activity. So Julia, if you want to hop in and help me out with this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you leave the cheat sheet up for us, though. All right. So, Deborah Hollingsworth, it looks like you're eating ice cream. We're going to call on you. So, you got a few seconds there. All right. You're going to make a strong ask for your party. You want to make sure you include a specific dollar amount and either do the one time or do a recurring ask. So, there's an ask, it's a specific dollar amount. Make sure people understand what the theory of change is. So, I need you to do X so that this to achieve Y, and make sure you use the cheat word of together. So while you're thinking, I'm going to try this. let's see. Hey, Nisa, I know you care a lot about vaccinations, and the Organizing Fellows program is raising funds to reach 15,000 of our least vaccinated counties. Can I count on you for a gift today of $10? We need to raise the money for this program so that more people get vaccinated so that we can end COVID, by God. We're all in this together. I cannot do it with you. Can I count on you to donate $10 right now?
I loved it. Very impassioned.
That was better than my 2 o'clock ask. Deborah, your turn.
Julia, you know that the 2022 Senate race is going to be important, but we also have local races and municipal races coming up in 2021. These are not as going to be as advertised, not as sexy, not as big, but they also don't require as much money as the Senate races in 2022. So before you get hit with all of the candidates next year, I'm going to ask you that you help our county party support local candidates this year in 2021. So we are asking, it's actually a short window. So we're asking everybody to donate $21 every month until November of this year. So if you can put a recurring donation, we've got an easy way for you to do that. Donate $21 every month so that our party can help local candidates with yard signs and literature, and so that we can actually have 3 more people elected to our Hickory City Council.
You forgot to use the "we're all in this together."
We're all in it together. Oh no!
Yes, that was amazing. I will say I have never ever seen the word "sexy" in a fundraising email, so that makes me want to donate. I was like,
it could work. I would donate.
99% ready to donate, but then you told me you were using it for yard signs.
Oh, I know.
Yard signs don't work at all, so I'm back at 0 again. All right, let's see.
Those are sexy yard signs.
All right, Lance, you want to give it a go, or Wes? Lance says no. Wes?
I guess if I'm on the spot, I'll try to come up with something.
All right, let's try.
Julia, I am asking you. Ooh, wow, this is gonna be bad. 1 second. Give me a moment to get the juices flowing.
All right, it's all right. It's all right. I know I put you on the spot, and that's okay. I'll add that to your assignment for the day, and you can email me your ask later. But I think you guys get it. Just make sure that you always, for me, the biggest failures are when people forget to ask me for a specific amount. So when county parties send out emails, sometimes they just say, we need you to donate for the sustaining fund, or we need you to donate for the budget, and you don't actually know what it's for, and there's not a specific amount. And I love the cheating in terms of like, we're all in this together. Like, it reminds you that we're all moving forward together and we can't do it alone. So I like that. So go ahead, Nisa.
That is a very good point with regards to a specific number. Again, donors hate guessing, so eliminate as much guesswork as possible by giving them a benchmark. And when they click on your link, they can decide to give that amount, more or less. But if you're like, please give now, and they're looking at a form with like any range between $5 and $50, they're kind of like, okay, well, how much do you need, right? So just make sure you answer that question for them ahead of time. This really helps with engagement. Trust me on this. Yeah.
Jennifer's a candidate. There may be other candidates on, and Jennifer, I know you are a judicial candidate, so that's a little different, but I will say it doesn't matter what you're running for. You have to ask people for specific dollar amounts. So you have to actually say, can I count on you for $20, or can I count on you for 100? And that's the hardest thing to do when you start out, and then you'll learn it. So, all right, go ahead, Nisa. We're probably going to go until about 8:10. So we're trying to be respectful of your time, and I'll let Nisa finish.
Awesome. So we only have about 10 minutes left to go. So I'll get through the tools and then we can close out with questions. So Act Blue. I already talked about who we are, but I want to talk to you all about what actually we provide. So these are the 3 groups of tools I'm going to talk about: contribution forms and brandings, analytics, which sounds daunting, but I promise you isn't when you're using Act Blue. And then we're going to talk about mobile optimization, which is something that I'm totally obsessed with. All right. So oftentimes, when I am reaching out to a campaign, for example, I will ask them to send me their logos and campaign colors. And I do this because sometimes candidates will have like blue and yellow on their website, purple and green on their Act Blue form. And then I go down to their state to do a training and I'm driving by and I see their sign. I don't recognize it because they're using yet another different color combination, like orange and white. I only recognize the name and I'm just like, why is everything not streamlined? Really hard to recognize a campaign or a county party if your messaging isn't streamlined, if your colors aren't all the same, so on and so forth. So with Act Blue, this is really an opportunity for you to edit your forms and add your logos, your campaign or county colors. I'm assuming your county colors include blue. um, and that's a really great way for you to keep everything streamlined across all platforms and make sure everything's recognizable. Our forms are also super user friendly, not just for you on the admin end, but for donors, so they can navigate to your forms on their phones, on the desktop, and figure out easily how to give. And if they have an Act Blue account, it's very easy. If they don't, we ask a few questions so that we make sure we collect all of the information you would need to report your donor data, essentially. Last thing I want to talk about here is Spanish language contribution forms. So no, we don't actually translate your messaging into Spanish for you, but all of the language that comes with the form is translated into Spanish, and that increases accessibility in your communities. So definitely something worth thinking about. And if that's something that you'd like enabled, just reach out to me and I can do that for you. Okay, let's talk about analytics. Again, it's a pretty daunting word. I'm someone who hates math, hates data, even though I talk about it all the time. I think I'm beginning to like it. But when it comes to analytics with Act Blue, as soon as you sign in, you can see the screenshot, or sorry, the snapshot of your contributions for that week. Super helpful, even and especially for county parties, because then you can easily toggle to last month's contributions and see if you are on track to meet your goals, right? So let's say your goal for the quarter is raising $2,000 and we're in the second month of the quarter and you're at 1,000. You can easily see that information through Act Blue. Another application of this is you can compare you can do year-end analyses. So you can take a look at how much money you raised last year, whether or not that worked for the programs that you were trying to build and launch. And if it doesn't, you can easily fine tune your strategy to raise more money. And all of this comes in really pretty colors and graphs on Act Blue. Trust me on this. I don't look at anything that's not a graph. So yeah, and if you need help interpreting your data, I am happy to do my best. I'm also happy to pull in someone from our data team to help you. Just a very helpful tool. Okay, so let's talk about mobile optimization. Simply put, what this means is that our forms look really good on mobile devices. There have been many times when I've been online shopping or like looking at a candidate's website and I have to pinch and zoom in order to see the candidate's full name or the district that they're running in or click sign up and so on and so forth. And then they have a pop up and I can't get to the X. It's just a huge mess, right? So with Act Blue, there's none of that pinching and zooming. We make it really easy for people to give on the go. And this is especially important for rural organizing because, again, like I said, broadband access is a real barrier to engagement, but we also know that most folks in rural areas do have smartphones, and that is where they're giving, right? So if you know that, then you know that you should be using forms that work well on mobile devices. You should be using high contrast colors. Your email should have bigger font because I'm not trying to squint when I read it, so on and so forth. A lot of different considerations, and Act Blue for the most part, takes a lot of that guesswork out of the way for you. And then anything else that you're thinking about when it comes to mobile, you can just reach out to me because, again, I'm really obsessed with it. So let's say that you are not yet signed up with Act Blue. It's very easy to do that. All you have to do is go to actblue.com and click on either the blue button that's next to the other blue button, or scroll down a little bit and click on the orange button that says Get Set Up. Then you're taken to a form that takes about 5 minutes to fill out. Put in your information, and my team will reach out to you in the next few days. Once you're all set up, I reach out to you with all of these really cool, I think they're cool. I put them together. All these cool resources and tools. We have another training that I link in that welcome email. And then I also ask you to hop on the phone with me so I can walk you through how to use Act Blue. Okay, very quick wrap up, and then we'll do resources and questions. So to wrap up, we love small dollar donors. We're always trying to engage them because they help us build people-powered movements. Digital fundraising tools make it easy and simple for your supporters to get involved, and fundraising emails are the best way for you to directly reach out to your supporters and make sure you have the impact that you want to have. And also, ActBlue is here to help with your account and digital fundraising strategy, and we do it at no extra cost to your party. So definitely take advantage of this. Resources, we have a blog.actblue.com. You can sign up for our email list. I don't think that's clickable, but it can definitely be sent in a follow-up. And then you can also email me at ding@actblue.com. Again, I am the dedicated representative for all things North Carolina except federal stuff. So feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to get your questions answered.
Yeah.
Now or later.
Thank you, guys. We're gonna take a few minutes here for some questions and answers, but for compliance reasons, Nisa can't actually share some of her Act Blue screen. So I did want to share the last couple of slides that she shared. Talked about just how amazing Act Blue is. And so this is our Democratic Women account, and this is my dashboard. And I just want to show you, so this is like a long, this is from 2018 to 2021. So the Democratic Women, mostly we use our fundraising just for one event every year, and then for people to pay their dues. But you can see at a glance, I can see how much money I've ever raised and what the size of our average contribution is. But the cool thing is, if you scroll down, it actually shows you that like 60% of people paid via Act Blue Express, 28.7% of people paid with a mobile device. We've seen this go up as more and more of our Democratic women are using this. You can see what percentage of people use PayPal or Apple Pay, and you can also see which one of your forms are actually performing better. So you can see for the 2019 convention, we raised more online than we did for the 2020 convention, which this is hysterical, y'all, because we raised almost as much in 2020 than we did in 2019. And 2020, like we totally went down because it was online and it was only like $50 to come. So we just had a ton more participants. So I wanted to show that to you. I also wanted to show that the really cool thing that I love about the forms is how easy they are to make. And so you can see all of my forms here on my little contribution form. And we're just going to quickly look at like DWNC 2020 dues. And so I think it'll come up. May take just a second here. So I just because Wesley asked me a question about videos in Act Blue pages, it's just super easy when you're creating this to drop in any YouTube link that you have. And so as a joke, because Ben was on one of the sessions, I just added his story of self. He's one of our org fellows. But not only does the video there, you can make it so that it auto plays and it tells a story about why you should donate to this group or why you should participate. And it's just another way to get that out there. The other, and Nisa mentioned this, and so I'm going to share it now from my phone just so you can see what it looks like via a phone real quick. So that's the same form that y'all just saw as a form on the computer. It'll take just a second for my phone to share. This is what it looks like on the phone. This is the same exact form. And you'll see how it has resized everything. Nothing is weird and off the side of the screen. It's just automatically responsive, depending on what device you're on. So like iPad or any kind of different phone, it works just fine. So I can't say enough about how much I love the customization features and the ability to embed videos. We're going to go first to a very quick question from Jennifer, which is, and then Jennifer, if you'll stay later, we may ask some other additional ones. But Nisa, do you guys do judicial campaigns?
Yes, we do. It depends on the state and the jurisdiction. Definitely shoot me an email and I can double check for you, but I feel like the guidance changes to be more inclusive each year. So definitely reach out to me and we'll see what we can work out.
So there have been new rules put in place for judicial campaigns in North Carolina, and I believe Jennifer has been told no by Act Blue. So we just want to run some of that by you. So we'll double check there. All right. Who else? Anybody else have a question for Nisa? Gary had a question about security.
I make any number of individual contributions through Act Blue, but haven't opened an account. And maybe this is because the Democratic Party has not necessarily had the best record in regard to online security over the past 10 years. So I was just wondering, I obviously don't need you to talk chapter and verse, but have you guys had any breaches or, any significant number of attacks?
In the time that I've been at Act Blue, I have never witnessed a successful attack. And let's just say if there had been an attack that was successful, the news media would be covering it. We also do regular audits with the Credit Card Bureau. I forget what its official name is, but we want to make sure that everyone's donor data is as safe as possible. And we have a very strong and robust and capable security tech team that works on that. So yeah, I would say you're as safe as can be. And I regularly give through Act Blue and have never had a concern about that. I will also say that we have a really strong and capable customer service team. So even if there was a strange situation with your contributions, they would be happy to refund it for you, so on and so forth. But in terms of your data being leaked, I've never, in my time at ActBlue, witnessed that happening.
Okay, because I make any number of contributions through Act Blue. I just haven't set up an auto account, a fast track. So
Yeah, I would say the express accounts are just really great because they make things more convenient. And in fact, I believe we use Amazon as our part of our security infrastructure.
okay,
So it's as safe as having your information, on your Amazon, account. So highly recommend it.
thank you.
There was a private question that came about in my chat box there, but can you, and I think some of it was public, but can you share a little bit about does the inclusion of video increase engagement and donor giving? I mean, I think it does, but do you have data that backs that up?
So I don't think we have data on this currently just because the feature was just rolled out in the last few months. But this is something I can check with our tech team about. What I will say is it really does also vary depending on your community and what folks are looking for in terms of engagement. I think videos add a great personal touch. It allows campaigns and parties to tell a personal story that folks don't often get. And if people are taking the time out of their day to watch that video, I think it's a compelling way to keep them engaged with the work that you're doing. But the other thing to keep in mind is if you're in a predominantly rural area, there might be different considerations, right? If folks only have so much time or so much bandwidth that they're able to access, then you might want to cut back on the video, which might take a long time to load, even though we have, top tier tools, just because that's how the internet works. And you might want to take that time instead to write a very compelling email to folks.
Yeah, cool. All right. Any other questions? There are two more that I'm going to wait to the end, but any other questions? Lance, Kayla, James, Jamie, Catherine? Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Nisa.